Gilmore Girls Season 2, Episode 8. And there's a nice play on words with this one because it's called The In and Outs of Inns. So Inns spelt double NS in the second instance. The Dragonfly Inn and Lorelai and Suki's ambitions to start it up, which they start putting into the planning stage in this episode. And this sort of correlates with a visit from their employer, Mira, who they've known for years, and everyone around the town seems to know. So she's very popular around the town, and it's a rare visit. And part of the drama is that Lorelai's very anxious to tell her about their plans, about then they want to do this. She doesn't want to upset her or hurt her feelings. And when she eventually does tell her, it turns out that Mir was planning on selling the Independence Inn for years anyway, but she didn't want to do it while they were still running it because they had such a good relationship and things like that. But she says, yeah, there's been plenty of offers over the years, so if you've got my backing. But then that leads to Lorelai getting cold feet, and she's actually pretty mean to Suki, and they get into a fight, and that becomes a big part of the drama of the episode. She gets talked into so many different things through Emily, but
I know,
this time she gets talked into posing for a self-portrait, and this has become a bit of a history. Not surprisingly, they tried to do it with Lorelai years ago, and that didn't go very well. So Rory once again gets roped into this. And at first she seems enthusiastic, and it's a thing Emily suggests we'll do it to try and lift Richard's spirits. But then, it doesn't quite go as to plan as they think it is. And there's also a subplot with Jess, because once again, the town are ganging up on Jess, and particularly Luke, because he's kind of like the parental figure. So there's this incident where there's some police tape at a crime scene, and this gets Paranoid Taylor all flustered and accusing Jess left, right, and centre. He's like, oh, he was seen here, he was seen there, and you get a town meeting where there's a list of crimes against him, and it really puts Luke in an awkward position. Actually, a really good scene where Rory goes to bat for Luke and puts Jess in his place.
Episode that I think is really solid. Again, a really enjoyable episode. I like meeting Mia because obviously we know a bit about Lorelai, that when she came to the Independence Inn as a teenager, Mia was running it and took her in. So I like that we get to meet that person that is so important to Rory and to Lorelai, and who obviously, as Emily says at the end of the episode, helped raise Lorelai. You know, if she hadn't met Mia, I mean, who knows where she would have ended up. We do meet Mia again later in the series, and she's played by a different actress later on. I actually like both the actresses. I thought this one was very good. Her rapport with Lorelai and Rory is very good, and I think she had good chemistry with them. I also like when they're taking her around the town, and, you know, it's obvious that she grew up there. Like you said, she's very well liked. Even Luke breaks out into a big smile, and then she outs him for being a Trekkie, which Lorelai and Rory, really hilarious. And that one's really good. I also like, you know, the part with the Dragonfly Inn. The actual property is was used on the TV show The Waltons, apparently. That structure. It's beautiful. I love the Dragonfly Inn. There's also another great reference, which these days is so much harsher than it was back then. When Lorelai is looking up, she's all like, "Oh, I found out who owns the Dragonfly," and Suki's like, "Tell me it's not that bastard Donald Trump." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's even worse a reference now."
Yeah, that stands out now.
So yeah, and I think, you know, it's interesting to see Lorelai have those cold feet, you know, when she realizes that Mia's going to sell the Independence Inn, because to Lorelai, the inn is more than just her workplace. It's almost like her second home. So I think she reacts to it the way, you know, someone might react to finding out that their family childhood home is being sold. You know, a part of her is going to go missing. And I think that's why she gets so uppity with Suki, which is obviously not a fun scene to watch. You know, I don't like seeing Lorelai and Suki fight, and she goes off on Suki completely unwarranted, you know, and you do feel really bad for Suki in that scene, but you can understand why Lorelai's freaking out. So I think the Lorelai stuff is interesting. The Rory posing for the portrait thing is just the funniest thing ever. I love when Emily called Lorelai. She's like, Lorelai, your daughter is being unreasonable. And Lorelai's like, let me guess, Mum. You've got her in some stupid dress with her arms above her head. You know, she can't even do this. And there's like a swan as well. They talk about like a swan wandering around. So that's fun. And yes, Jess drawing the chalk outline outside of Taylor's shop and putting up the police tape. I'm sorry, but that is a brilliant prank, okay? Like, I know that Jess has been making a nuisance of himself elsewhere, but that I love it. It's
great.
So funny. It's so good. I also love it at some point someone says something about like, oh, a fake murder, and Mia's like, there was a fake murder, and Rory's like, yeah, the town's too boring to cook up a real one. So I thought that was really fun. And the town meeting's really fun as well. I love when they start listing all the things that Jess has done. You know, like he kicked a gnome and he did this and he did this, and then Lorelai's like, I heard he controls the weather and wrote the screenplay to Glitter.
Yeah, I had that line down.
That was a great line too. And yeah, the Rory confronting Jess is a great scene as well, because as she says, she cares about Luke, her mum cares about Luke, and you know, whatever he's done might be funny, but he's turning the whole town against Luke. Yeah. And this is the episode where he fixes the toaster, isn't it? Like at the end of it, he fixes Luke's toaster to like kind of make like
a bridge.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
And he doesn't admit to it, but it kind of shows that Jess is not all bad. That, you know, he does, and he when Rory is confronting him, he does seem to take a step back and be like, oh, I didn't realize that they were being so harsh on him. Like, I don't think that Jess genuinely understood what Luke was getting from a town, because he's never lived in a town like this. He lived in New York City where people don't speak to each other. So I think he doesn't quite understand how bad it's getting, because I think it's after this episode that he does start to back off a little bit. And so I think this episode is a good step in showing that Jess is not all bad, that he can be a decent guy, and that he obviously is at least a little bit appreciative to Luke for what he's doing for him. So I thought that was a nice angle to kind of start to build Jess's character a little bit and show that there are more sides to his character, not just to do with Rory as well, because the only time we've seen him be nice so far is with Rory. So I like that we're seeing that he obviously is starting to care for Luke as well. So again, another solid episode that I really enjoyed watching, had some really fun scenes, and is again showing the strength of season 2. What about you? How did you go watching this?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a bit of a contrast to the last one, because I think the last one was a bit more comedic and bit more. I don't like to say filler, but you could say maybe it's a little bit more of an interesting one. Whereas this, you did have some dramatic, meaty stuff, especially with Sookie and Lorelai. But it was, once again, it was quite important to the future and to the town and to Lorelai's history within the town. Like, you could see why she was getting so sentimental. And I think it's quite reflective of when you're making a big step like that and you're taking a chance going out on your own, you do get nervous, because until you do it for the first time, it is scary. So you can, even though she's very harsh with Sookie, you can at least understand some of her feelings. And she just reacts in a very extreme way and goes about it the wrong way. But you can definitely understand how those feelings would fester, and the nostalgia. Actually, one of the funniest scenes, which made me laugh a lot, was when they go to like the cafe, and you've got the woman who like
Bran.
Yeah, who owns like the property which they want to use, and that whole thing about them trying to be quite sensitive in like suggesting, well, what happens when you're no longer around? But the way they put it is, what happens if you go on a vacation? And they're just hoping she'll cotton on to the metaphor, but she never does. She takes them literally, and because at one point Lorelai changes it. Well, what is it if it's to like the longest vacation you could ever take? And just their reaction. And I think this is where Melissa McCarthy shows her sort of comic chops as well. She's really funny in that scene. But that scene pretty much had me in stitches. Them trying to talk around it and talk in metaphors was so funny, and her just not cottoning on.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
So that's a really funny scene, and it's definitely a good Lorelai and Sookie episode for their like friendship. And there's a lot of good stuff. It's another quite good Luke episode, because I like how he gives Lorelai good advice twice in the episode, because early on he's kind of giving her business advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, he basically just gives her the advice just to jump in and take a chance sort of thing, which again is good advice on that. Yeah. So it's fitting the episode where Rory goes to bat for Luke and says to Jess, yeah, this is kind of crappy the way you're treating him. And then we actually do see some of Luke's like positive sides and strengths as a person. And I tell you what, I mean, Rory is not the person to piss off, because she's like, she's shooting daggers at Jess in that scene. So, but we get a little bit of a spark between them once again, building
because at the end he's all like, well, did you think it was funny? Yeah, and she's just like, that is so not the point. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I like that stuff, and I think it's a good episode. It's kind of a good one where you get a good use of most of the characters in it, because there's also some funny Michelle stuff with Mia not understanding him.
Yeah, and the girl's translating it incorrectly.
Oh, that's so funny. Rory like winding him up.
He said you were a problem and to get out. I did not. And then she's like, I don't know what I did to make him hate me.
Because what's funny about that stuff is then temporarily it seems Michelle is like upbeat and happy, and it's when Mia comes in and he's just sort of sucking up to her, and things are going well until it gets to the point where she can't understand anything he's saying.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
And then they have that cute moment later on where he's like talking to her and she's like, oh, I understood that every word. And they're so happy that she finally understood him. And yeah, that is a cute thing. I forgot to mention one scene that I absolutely love in this episode. And again, it's an Emily scene. I just love anything to do with Emily. When she comes to see Mia at the inn. Because the show is told from Lorelai's point of view, obviously we don't often see things from Emily's point of view, but I think this episode really hammered home how much Emily missed her daughter and how much regret she has around that whole situation. And I also find it very interesting when she says to me, when Mia's like, I wondered what I would say to you. And she's like, I thought to myself, what is this? What if this was my daughter? What if, like when Lorelai turned up, she's like, what if this was my daughter? What would I want her to do? I would want someone to, take her in and give her a home. And Emily says, I would have wanted someone who would send her home. And it's really interesting because I can see my parents saying something like that. Like, that's how they would have thought too. Like, family first. Like, you stay with blood family and you want to find someone. But I also love when she leaves and she says, do you have pictures from that time? And I just think, I think we don't often contemplate how much Emily missed of her daughter's life and of Rory's life, and how she'd have these gaps where she wouldn't have family photos. She wouldn't have photos of Rory as a baby. And I think this scene, it's a small scene, but it really emphasizes that loss for Emily and that part of her life that she missed out on, her daughter's life. So I really loved that scene. I really like that they put it in, and that they had that little confrontation between Emily and Mia, and that it wasn't like overly like grr, it wasn't Emily yelling at her or telling her off. It was just two women who helped raise the same girl having to have this confrontation. I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah, because also similar generations. I mean, Mia's obviously a bit older, you can tell, but similar generations, and they can both relate. A sweet, gentle little scene, and a good one to show that Emily really does care about Lorelai and has missed some of the relationship over the years because of the way things were with them. My only complaint, but this isn't necessarily with this episode, but it's the fact that so far we haven't got that much Lane this season. It feels like she's been shoved to the side a little bit. And
you are right.
I guess it might be because they're just juggling other plots, but I know in the future we're going to get a lot more. So it's not a big issue, but it just would have been nice to have maybe got more of her this season so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But as we go on, we'll get some more, and as we get into the later seasons, if we keep watching, we'll obviously get some really good Lane stuff. But yes, definitely a complaint. We always need more Lane. I am definitely always for more Lane in the thing. But yeah, no. Overall, like you said, it's a very solid episode, and again, just showing the strength of season 2. It just seems to be going from strength to strength so far. I mean, I don't think we've come across an episode that we don't like. I mean, I know you weren't massively fan of. But I'm a massive fan of presenting Lorelai Gilmore, but you still found stuff in there that you liked. So yeah, so I think so far it's a good season. It's going really solidly.
Yeah, well, next time could test that theory a bit, because I know it's the Romeo and Juliet episode.
Yes, that one is a bit of an odd one.
And when I saw the write up, I thought, oh, Tristan's back. I thought, because I didn't remember him still being in it at this point.
No, well, we haven't seen him at all this season. This is his first and last appearance this season. So, yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I do remember the episode, actually, when I saw the write-up. And then the one after that is a Christmas episode. So that's fitting. We've got a Christmas one.
Is that the Bracebridge dinner?
Yeah. I
love that episode. That'll be a good one to get to.
Okay. So we'll see how we go, but we're in the run up now till Christmas, so I think you can expect us to do those episodes before Christmas. So look out for those reviews, but let us know what you think of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always, and support me on patreon.com/borednow, and Rachel if you want to talk about your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. I will have some Gilmore Girls stuff up shortly. My Tumblr and my Twitter also linked in my YouTube, and Keith will usually put a link in the description. So come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, thanks. Keep watching TV, keep watching Gilmore Girls, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.